Imagine for a moment a conversation so natural, so effortless, that the person in front of you just knows you understand them. They feel it, like an old friend who finishes their sentences before they do. And the moment they feel understood, something shifts inside. A door opens, trust floods in, and in that moment, you own the conversation. Because there's something fascinating about people, isn't there? The way they reveal their truths, without even knowing it. Before the words even leave their lips. The unconscious had already whispered the answer, 5 seconds before. You see it in their breath, the flicker of their eyes, the way their body leans towards pleasure, away from pain. People tell you what they think they want. I just want freedom, they say. Happiness, they declare. But what does that really mean? That's the question, isn't it? Ask too much, push too far, and you lose them. But if you mirror, echo, reflect, in absolute sincerity, then something magical happens. Because deep down, people, they aren't even aware of how much they deceive themselves. But the unconscious mind never lies. It always speaks first. And when you tune into the space between the words, when you listen before they even speak, you see what they don't say. And once you know this, you start noticing things. The tiny microexpressions, the shifts in their breath, the way a real smile never quite touches the eyes of someone who's faking it. Because the unconscious, it always reveals itself. Some people, they focus so intently on the details, don't they? Like trees in a dense forest. They see the bark, the texture, every line. But they miss the forest itself. And here's the thing. The more you focus, the less you see. But when you step back, when you chunk up, patterns emerge. Connections appear. Suddenly you see the whole picture. And people, they feel it when you match them. When you enter their patterns, their world, their filters. They feel it in their bones. Because when you mirror their metaprograms, their way of sorting reality, they don't just hear you, they feel you. Like a tuning fork resonating at the exact right frequency. And suddenly rapport is effortless. Some people, they always move away from pain first. Some always choose pleasure. And the way you frame things before and after, gain or loss, determines everything. Because the nervous system, it speaks the language of metaphor, of contrast, of story. And stories, they stick. Because stories, they don't engage the mind, they bypass it. The more bizarre, the more vivid, the easier to remember. And once a story enters the unconscious, it lives there. A single shift in perspective, a single metaphor, and a belief rewards itself without effort. When you have rapport, when you truly have them, break it, just for a moment. Let them feel the pain of losing that connection. When you bring them back, the bond deepens. Because the reptile brain is always scanning, always filtering. It's looking for contrast, friend or foe, good or bad, pleasure or pain. And when you guide that contrast, you guide that decision. Most people, they aren't even thinking. They're running on automation, a robotic trance of routine and reaction. This is why they're so easily led. They don't monitor their thoughts. They don't question their patterns. Once a pattern is disrupted, the mind becomes open, ready, seeking a new pattern to latch onto. And this is where influence lives. Because people, they lean into what pulls them, and they lean away from what threatens them. And the moment you notice that, the moment you master this, the game changes forever. And as you begin to notice something shifting, something unlocking, something awakening deep inside, you might begin to wonder, what is it? A thought, a realization? Or maybe it's just a feeling that you've always known this, somehow. That every conversation, every moment, every word exchanged between people, it holds a rhythm, a dance, a secret language that some understand without even trying. And the moment you begin to notice that, it grows stronger, a knowing, a sense, a realization that people, they're always revealing more than they think they are. Because words, they're just the surface. But the truth is underneath, before the words, before the thoughts, before the conscious mind even catches up. And once you start tuning in, really tuning in, you see it everywhere. The flicker of an eye, the way someone breathes, the subtle way a body leans towards what it craves and away from what it fears. And isn't it fascinating that most people, they've no idea they're doing it, but you do. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because all people move towards pleasure, away from pain. And the way they phrase things, the way they express what they want, that tells you everything. A single word, a phrase, an unspoken hesitation. And you already know which way they're leaning. And it's funny, isn't it? The way people believe that they know what they want. I just want to be happy. I just want success. I just want to feel free. But what does that mean? Because if you ask too much, if you push too hard, it slips through your fingers like sand. But when you echo it, reflect it, let it land the way they need to hear it, then something clicks. Because people, they don't buy facts, they buy stories. Stories they tell themselves about the past. Stories they dream about the future. And the moment you weave their own stories back to them, amplified, reflected, aligned with how they already see the world, they feel understood. And what happens when someone feels deeply understood? They flow effortlessly. And that's the secret, isn't it? Not telling, not forcing, just guiding, with a word here, a pause there, a carefully placed contrast that pulls them forward before they even realise that it's happening. Because people, they don't think in logic, they think in contrast, before and after, gain and loss, risk and reward, friend or foe, safe or unsafe. And when you hold the frame, when you own the contrast, you own the decision. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to see how easy it is, how natural, how automatic. Because once you notice how people lean, once you notice how they move to the world, you're already ahead. And something else starts to happen. You begin to see patterns. Patterns in people, patterns in speech, patterns in thought. Some chunk down, lost in the details, focusing so intently on the trees they miss the forest. Others, they see the big picture, big ideas, the grand sweeping movements of life. And the moment you watch their way of thinking, the way of filtering the world, then something locks into place. Because when you step into their patterns, when you speak their patterns, when you match their filters, their criteria, their deepest unspoken rules for how reality works, they trust you instinctively, unquestionably, because it feels right. And then the fun begins. Because now you can play with contrast. You can break rapport just for a moment. Let them feel the loss and then pull them back. And when they come back, when they feel that reconnection, the bond is stronger than before. Because the nervous system, it learns through contrast, to the absence of something and the return of it. And what happens when you begin to play with this? When you begin to integrate it into every conversation, when it becomes so natural, so effortless, that you don't even have to think about it anymore. That is when everything changes. Because now you're not just hearing what people say, you're hearing what they don't say. You're reading between the lines, between the words, between the breaths. And it's all there. It's always been there. And maybe you've known this all along. Or maybe you're just realising it now. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Because once you see, you never stop seeing.